if you grow and if you compromise on quality, even say 10%, you're actually playing with 10% of people that you are dealing with.
Exactly.
People almost exhaust all their savings, they sell land, etc. to get their loved ones treated at the best hospital possible in the country.
Your healthcare is most dependent on your PIN code.
This decade will belong to sector-focused funds.
You know, as a founder, you also start believing a little bit in fate. India, I think, is gonna be a torchbearer for healthcare in the world.
Pfizer has prevented almost 300 people from committing suicide.
The biggest company in the world will be a health tech company.
My biggest learning source has been talking to investors. Now we service like 8 lakh customers a month.
Maybe India has about 100,000 startups or so. I think I would have met maybe more than 5,000 of them.
Okay.
It's a lot of work over the weekends.
Hi everyone, today really excited to host the episode of Carnaama around healthcare. I got to know there are a lot more founders who pitch to VCs around healthcare than in any other sector, and I feel that this was much needed to do. Of course, our audience is early stage founders too, startups who are already at growth stage. But today we have three amazing folks, and when I say amazing, because of the experience also, and and all building in different aspects of ecosystem, both of them. And then we have a VC here as well, representing the VC side of view, and that is by Ajay. Ajay is from HealthQuad, the leading VC in healthcare segment, and investing in Series A to C. Right, Ajay, welcome to the show.
No, thanks, Chetan.
Lovely. And we also have Ankur. Ankur is building Hexahealth. Before that, he's also been part of startups like 1mg, and now building Hexahealth to simplify surgeries. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chetan.
Ankur.
Hi, guys.
Lovely. And we also have Varun. Varun here is building HealthAssure. He's been building it for over 10 years now, right?
13 years.
13 years, to say it right, 13 years. And of course, now, he's building an OPD insurance product, which is not just healthcare, by the way, guys. It's fintech plus healthcare. We need to talk about that as well. Varun keeps emphasizing, it's not, healthcare itself is not easy. Now I'm building something which is a mix of fintech plus healthcare. So lovely. Welcome to the show, guys, all of you. Really excited to have you all here.
Thank you, Chetan. Pleasure to be here.
And how are you feeling now with the setup? Say that again, jo bhai aapko acha laga. We didn't capture that officially now. Now we can.
Yeah, so the setup is nice, given कि इसमें वो studio वाली feel नहीं आती. There is no camera pointing at you. You're not sitting in a particular position. You're sitting in a car and you're being filmed. So it's much better to speak this way because you can speak naturally versus trying to say कि अच्छा कैमरे में कैसा दिख रहा हूँ, ऐसे बैठना है, and so.
ठीक है. All natural.
Now it all depends on your camera angle.
Exactly. All natural has to come out now. So now we should talk about in general, maybe one by one, if you guys can all take 2-3 minutes to talk about your personal journeys, because that's also obviously audience is very intrigued with what's the personal side. I've reached out to Ajay so many times. He gives me like a one-worder or something, but I need to know more about him in general, right? So Ajay, why don't you start your personal journey? How did you get into here is the other aspect you can talk. But really, from your school days and early childhood, what has shaped you into what you are today?
No, sure, no, happy to share the story. So, I grew up in Delhi. I'm a Delhi boy by heart. Went to Mount St. Mary's School.
Okay.
And then went on to do my BCom from SRCC. And I'm also a chartered accountant and MBA from Indian Institute of Management.
Okay.
And then
that's with every SRCC alumni, right? CA to, matlab it's a natural progression, right?
So my dad is also CA.
Yeah.
So we have so it's an interesting mix, and I'll come back to that later. So my brother's a doctor. He's an oncologist in US, and so we have a doctor and CA in the family. Okay. So I had to choose one of them. I said, which is the easier path, and so I chose to do CA.
Yeah.
And then, of course, and since then I've chose both.
Chose both.
Yeah. And then have spent about 2 decades across corporate finance, investment banking, investment management roles. A good part of my work life in Mumbai.
Okay.
So now
work life there, personal here.
Personal here. So it's now 3 years back is when I came back here, and so it's been a kind of getting best of both cities and spend time across Pepsi, American Express, Ernst & Young, headed Elara Capital's IB business,
Okay.
and then was almost for a decade with a large family office and headed their HealthTech fund, and then was very passionate about what was happening in healthcare in India and wanted to build out something big. And that's when joined hands with HealthQuad 3 years back, and today we are India's largest digital health focused early growth fund. That's how we classify ourselves. And the idea is to essentially back disruptive models, back entrepreneurs who are essentially trying to build scalable, sustainable models leveraging technology, and be a part of their journey. So yeah, that's a quick one about me, and now happily in Gurgaon for the last 3 years.
Okay, so Gurgaon over Mumbai any day?
That's why,
Controversial.
yes. That's why I said in the beginning itself. So it's been the best of both cities.
Best of both. ये तो फिर politically correct हो गया.
No, I still can't. No, I never thought or knew that Mumbai will grow so much on me. But made some great friends, had a great time, great connection. The city has its life on its own. So.
Ajay, पर अगर आपको founders चाहिए तो दिल्ली या बेंगलोर ही हो सकता है.
Yeah, you're sitting in Delhi right now. You better be supporting it.
No, I am fully. So indeed, we have quite a interesting mix. We have almost a third of our portfolio in Mumbai.
Oh, really?
And we have almost, I think, a third of our portfolio in Gurgaon, Noida, NCR, and so then we have a split between Hyderabad and Bangalore.
Guys, let's not ignore Hyderabad. Every time we are like Delhi, Gurgaon, Bangalore.
Hyderabad
is also catching up.
Interesting.
Pune as well. Pune as well.
For now, we don't have anything which is Pune headquartered, but maybe soon.
Great to know your backstory. I think you've given us some topics we'll come back to after some intro by both of them as well. Ankur, why don't you start about your journey?
Yeah, sure.
Where were you born and brought up? And
So I was born and brought up in Mathura.
Okay.
So as far away in terms of metro life as possible. So grew up there. My first school, उससे ज़्यादा weird name शायद किसी के स्कूल का नहीं हो सकता. मैं 1 साल था स्कूल में. But my nursery school's name was Champa Agrawal Bal Mandir. So I have gone from Champa Agrawal Bal Mandir to Stanford. So I have covered the
quite a story, right?
So then so studied there for a year, then from there went to Sacred Heart, then did my schooling entirely from there. From there went to IIT Madras, chemical engineering में चला गया.
Okay.
5 साल में समझ में आ गया कि नंबर ला सकता हूँ chemical engineering में, हो ना पाएगी आगे.
अच्छा.
So decided to move away from that. उसके बाद joined McKinsey. So I was McKinsey for a couple of years.
Okay.
So one thing which I think I had realized early on was कि health अच्छा लगता है. I liked being in health, talking about health, reading books about surgery or medicine, things like that.
अच्छा, you were doing that back then also.
हाँ, मतलब so for example,
inclination कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ी बहुत.
When people ask me कि why do you want to do health, तो मेरा वो होता है कि यार आप मुझे एक मैनेजमेंट की बुक दे दो और एक सर्जरी की बुक दे दो, मैं शायद सर्जरी की बुक पढ़ लूँगा पहले.
Okay.
So that's because
naturally intrigued
है, क्योंकि primarily my uncle had a pharma shop. मैं बचपन से उसी पे बैठता था. पापा की दुकान थोड़ी सी दूर थी, अंकल की दुकान पास थी. वहीं बैठा रहता था उनके साथ. And there you would see people come and say कि डॉक्टर साहब पेट में दर्द हो रहा है, आप दवाई दे दो. And you would see कि कितना फर्क पड़ता है उस चीज का कि someone is actually helping them out and giving them a medicine. Somehow वो inherently build हुआ कि यार health अच्छा है. क्यों है क्या है वो नहीं पता था, पर अच्छा है. तो फिर McKinsey में था. McKinsey में 1-1.5 साल I was sitting inside a hospital. तो उसके बाद वहाँ से
why that hospital?
No, I wasn't admitted. I was in the hospital.
No, that I know, but what were you doing as part of?
We were working on their medical tourism,
Okay.
their key account management, operational management.
Okay,
वो सब कर रहे थे.
understood. Okay.
तो वहाँ से फिर joined Abbott Nutrition. वहाँ पे 1-1.5 साल काम किया. फिर उसके बाद US चला गया. Went to Stanford, MBA.
Okay.
Then worked in investment banking for a couple of years.
Okay.
In Chicago. And that was again healthcare investment banking. तो वो 2 साल किया.
अच्छा.
And then knew कि यार इंडिया वापस तो आना है. So decided to come back, and Abbott was a known company. So I talked to them, joined Abbott back. became the marketing head for gastro portfolio. So डॉक्टर से डील करना सीखा कि डॉक्टर्स कैसे बात करते हैं, क्या चाहिए होता है, एमआरस के साथ धक्के खाए, क्लिनिक से निकाला भी गया कि आप बात क्यों कर रहे हो, निकल जाओ यहाँ से. So वो सब भी हुआ. And then from there joined 1mg. So 1mg Prashant and I go long back. So he's a senior from Stanford.
Okay.
So he was starting the diagnostics vertical.
Yeah.
तो एक दिन उसका फोन आया कि यार कुछ करेगा, diagnostics में करना है. तब तक मेरा corporate world से हो चुका था. ठीक है चलो diagnostics करते हैं. So decided to join him and this was around 8 years back.
Okay.
तो 1mg में फिर diagnostics vertical पे काम किया. Grew that vertical to around 3,000-4,000 orders a day.
Oh, lovely.
400 लोगों की टीम बनाई. Opened physical labs.
Okay.
So वो जब फिजिकल लैब बनानी चालू की तब समझ में आया कि कितना मुश्किल होता है जगह ढूंढना, उसमें इक्विपमेंट लाना. तो इंटरेस्टिंगली हमने एक बिल्डिंग देखी, उसको फाइनल भी मोर और लेस कर दिया था. देन वी रियलाइज कि ये फ्लोर पे इस मशीन का वेट ही नहीं संभाल सकता. तो वो सब समझा. And then started looking after the entire e-commerce business for 1mg. So e-pharma, e-diagnostics, e-consult. Then 1mg got sold to Tata. So it became Tata 1mg. And at that point, I and my co-founder, we said कि यार कोई दूसरी बड़ी हेल्थ की प्रॉब्लम ढूंढते हैं.
अच्छा.
अभी we don't think कि अभी कॉर्पोरेट में जाने का टाइम है. एक और प्रॉब्लम देखते हैं, सॉल्व करने की कोशिश करेंगे. And our tenets are very simple यार. So one, it has to be something big, something that impacts people's lives. And second, it has to be something जिसमें inherent issues हैं. मतलब it can't be कि नहीं हम किसी कोई अच्छी चीज को और बेटर कर रहे हैं, हम problematic चीज को ही solve करने की कोशिश करें.
Correct.
So hence we stumbled upon IPD. कि inpatient जब patient admit हो रहा होता है तो उसके बहुत सारे problems होते हैं. How can you solve for that? So hence we created Hexahealth, and the idea is very simple. We want to help the patient from discovery to recovery. तो आप जब हॉस्पिटल या डॉक्टर ढूंढ रहे हो तो we'll help you with that. And आप जब सर्जरी या ट्रीटमेंट के बाद रिकवर हो रहे हो, we'll help you with that as well. So manage the entire journey through and through.
We'll come in detail in that as well. Talking about Hexa, what you're building. But what I found interesting was that you've done like different aspects of healthcare as well, right? Like, I mean, started off with investment banking, but otherwise also built with 1mg something different. What you're building now is different, but you've understood sort of, the pain point. You're tackling the pain points more than just making something better, right? Yeah. That is the idea. Lovely. From, IPD to OPD, I want to transition that.
Varun, वैसे पहले OPD होता है हमेशा.
हाँ, वैसे उल्टा होता है, but हाँ, जब आपने IPD बोला तो मैंने कहा, why don't you use this to transition to what Varun also is building. But before you build this, I think we should talk about as well, like how your experience has helped shape, and the initial part of your journey, personal journey also would be very interesting to know.
Okay, so I was born in Delhi, pretty much spent most of my life here. Went to school, DPS school, it was a good school. And after that I went to KMC, Economics Honors, Karodimal College.
Nice.
I'm economic honors too, by the way.
Oh, you
Good to know.
Okay.
एक CA economic honors है, देख लो, different variety that
arts
is.
world.
So this was. Can we go to the timeline also?
Of course.
Not to make you sound very old again.
So
But yes.
in 88 I passed school.
Okay.
In 91 I passed college.
Okay.
And post that I went to the US, just like Ankur.
Yeah.
I went to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I did my MBA there.
Yeah.
And after that I came back, I joined consulting. I was in, at that time, E&Y, but now the same team is in Deloitte. After that I was in G. So I think that was a very good experience. So to be in consumer finance, because at that time it was really booming. Consumer, I think earlier there were only big banks.
This was which year again?
This was 99.
99. Okay. In India.
In India. So at that time, so I think so G, we used to have G countrywide at that time. Which kind of revolutionized auto loans and two-wheeler loans and personal loans. So amazing experience, and I think we were like, leaders in the 0% and all, for, most of these products. So very, very amazing to see how finance is such a huge industry and how we can be more consumer focused. Post that I joined ICICI Bank, which again was the hardcore Indian kind of very consumerized, trying to take it to the masses. And that was again a good experience to see how the Indian companies work differently from the so-called multinationals. But post that, I joined United Healthcare in India. United Healthcare is the largest health company in the world. So last year they were almost $500 billion in revenue.
Yeah, they changed their name in India, right? Now they're
Optum, they have 2 brand names.
Yeah.
So I think, and that was actually not a big transition, because if you're looking at banking and insurance are very similar. So you look at risk, you look at distribution, regulatory. So everything is more or less same. The only thing is you're taking risk on human beings rather than taking risk on the financials.
Yeah.
So I was in United for 5 years.
Okay.
We did some amazing stuff there, and that's when I realized, I looked at the opportunity, which was massive for primary care.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, hey, this is the time to. It was late. I think I was 40 when I jumped out, but it was I think 13 years now. Amazing experience. So we are focused on building the largest HMO in the Indian market, 1,200 cities.
Yeah.
In any month, we service 700 cities. So. And health is a kind of a low error kind of a system, so you have to get it right even at 700 cities in one month.
Yeah.
But I think it's been evolutionary to say, hey, what do we do next? What do we do next?
Yeah.
And we realized that we need to now take it into insurance, and that was like 4 years back, and that's been a very good journey.
Correct. But you started building the network first, then you got into insurance, right? I think you built the foundation, then only it made sense to build something on top of that. And purely it was B2B as well, right? Before
it was B2B earlier.
I think good topic to talk, that do VCs work on Saturdays?
We are working 24/7
all the time.
Yes, all the time. It's like every morning you get up, honestly, it's like you're managing. For me, it's like you're managing 7 businesses every morning.
Really?
So besides our own
Because
fund, all the
their
portfolio companies
well,
where you're super actively involved. While we have a larger portfolio and it gets divided between people. So it's like you're managing 7 businesses.
Yeah.
So, and as you get more intricately involved, founders are also happy to involve you more. So you are always solving something.
Hasn't that relationship also changed? I think good you're talking, like, VC's life is not just putting in money, right? It's also making sure, they grow, right? And that's why, but it depends how much they are involved, right? Some are more, some are less. But what is your model there? Like, how much do you really get into, and what aspects do you help in?
No, so there's now increased realization in the market that it's not just about financial capital, but more strategic capital in terms of how you are able to steer along with the founder the journey of the company. And that's why when we talk to different LPs, a lot of them say that this decade will belong to sector focused funds. And we do realize that healthcare is such a deep sector, and it requires such deep domain knowledge and network that typically a generalist fund would find it rather difficult to essentially bring the same network and knowledge on the table that a sector focused fund could. And I think that's our core differentiator as well. We are deep in the space, over 200 plus years of cumulative team experience and we have clinicians, operators, investors all on as part of the investment team. So that's what we essentially do for our founders. We get very active. We are typically the most active investors at the board across our portfolio companies. And you should take feedback from the founders how good they like it. But our idea is to essentially help them in every way. Whether it's go-to-market, organization building, institutionalization, corporate governance, so they continue to get ready for bigger and better. And that's our endeavor.
That's quite a lot
and
of
of course
work
we learn, and because we get an opportunity to learn from different businesses, we are able to cross-leverage that knowledge and essentially steer. Either it's GTM, other strategy projects, etc. for our portfolio companies better. And we get a lot of global exposure, given that a lot of our investor base is global in nature from US, UK, other parts of Asia. So we sort of bring that knowledge together and essentially see a lot of interesting and great models in healthcare happening elsewhere. And some
to take the learnings from there.
Take the learnings from here to here. And interestingly, increasingly now we are seeing that how Indian models, which are now solving for global healthcare challenges, are also taking shape, and we are very proud of that journey for some of our portfolio.
And you facilitated that as well, right? In some way.
Yes. So we are very happy that you are essentially making that impact in the world. As a fund, in any case, our philosophy is to just not deliver superior financial returns, but also create the right impact at the bottom 50% of the country's population.
Amazing. Yeah, I think fund with a purpose and also specialization.
Yeah.
And that's the way to go. I'll take both of your thoughts also on this. Varun, because you've also seen, the transition. Yeah. Have you also now seen, as you talk to more funds, that being involved and giving more than just money is something that you would also appreciate more, and a lot of founders are appreciating it more.
I think there's been a tremendous evolution of the ecosystem. I think from the entrepreneurs' ends, and I think from the investors' ends, from the board levels, I think really, really fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think my biggest learning source has been talking to investors.
Yeah.
And it's need not be our own investors, but could be just investors in the market, just like Ajay, to sit down and saying, hey, what's happening, and for them to ask you questions and for you to struggle and maybe give that answer. So that kind of opens up the mind of the entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, I think also, especially in healthcare, are solving such tough problems, which takes decades to solve, that you need that, kind of peeping out of the woods every now and then. And say, hey, this is where I need to go to. Like in the last 8-10 months, I think it's all been about profitability. To be able to, I think where it really helped me was having a great board.
Ankur, how's that helped, having, the right investors on board? And even if you're looking right now, has that changed now? Have you seen that change, that looking for somebody who can add more than just giving money, right?
There are funds who are value accretive. There are funds who are value neutral. And then there are funds who are value negative. As far as possible, please avoid value negative.
Okay.
Value neutral, अगर पैसे लेने हैं, issue आ रहा है, तो value neutral तक भी चले जाओ.
ठीक है.
But if you are a good founder and if you have a good asset, go for value positive. And what do I mean by value positive funds? Value positive funds are funds who will come on your board and they'll guide you in the right direction. They will never, for example, in health, one of my pet peeves is that funds come and say कि यार बस अब grow करो. Health में नहीं. Health में if you grow and if you compromise on quality, even say 10%, you're actually playing with 10% of people that you are dealing with.
Exactly.
That's a very important point.
Because health में it's not toothpaste, it's human beings that you are dealing with.
Exactly.
So you have to make sure that no matter, even if you grow by say 5%, 2%, 10%, you have to ensure that the quality of care that you are delivering consistently has to be good. No compromises of that. And for that, you need a board who shares that vision with you.
Correct.
And says कि यार ठीक है, this is how you are growing, and this is the quality of care you are delivering. We'll also measure you on the quality of care that you deliver.
That's important.
Right? And second is, if an investor, as Ajay also said, has sector expertise, that helps you a lot. Particularly in health, because it's a tough sector. What happens is when you are in healthcare and you are building something, many times as an entrepreneur, you lose sight of what is the bigger picture. And what do I mean by bigger picture is, while I am building for one thing, I've spent 4 years or 3 years doing it, the world has moved. So there are things which have come up now.
Correct.
And VCs typically have a forward-looking view for that, because they deal with founders who are trying to build something in that space. So they can always come back and tell you that, yeah, this is the direction which you are taking today, but this is the direction which can give you more impact as you grow. So you can at least plan according to that. For example, usage of AI in health. Right now, I might see only that many companies who are trying to use AI in health, but an Ajay or any good VC with sector expertise would have seen a lot more. So they can tell us the uses of AI much better than what I would be able to figure out. And that helps. So that's where I think the right board and the right kind of investors are absolutely important. No questions about it.
As a founder, you also start believing a little bit in fate. And you might have an investor whom you might think is negative, but they might give the most positive value because it's the randomness of your journey. So one is where you want to go, and I think it's never a straight journey to get there. But I think I've seen those situations, and that's again beautiful.
Let me share some peculiarities. Earlier I have seen companies across sectors as well. Would have over time met over, maybe India has about 100,000 startups or so.
Easily.
I think I would have met maybe more than 5,000 of them across
Wow.
spaces. So
great sample size, I must say.
Interestingly,
that's a lot of work over the weekends.
Interestingly, at least as as we map, there are about 10,000 plus HealthTech startups alone.
Yeah, that's right.
Interestingly, so and it's the interesting point is, see, a lot of health tech entrepreneurs or even entrepreneurs in healthcare space as a whole are from non-healthcare backgrounds. So it's either something in their personal journey. Sometimes it's more top-down as well. Why they might have chosen to come into healthcare. But per se, they may not have too much background in healthcare. And when I say healthcare, it's not necessarily that you need to be a doctor. You could be an operator, you could be an administrator, you could be involved with healthcare as a space. But people come from different walks of life into healthcare. But when they come with so much passion to essentially build something, the first thing that strikes them is that it's a very closed ecosystem. It's not as open an ecosystem as a consumer business. And you realize that you're dealing with, so that's how I call it the 4P model. You have payer, providers, pharma as the three of those pillars, and you have patient at the middle. And this payer, provider, pharma is a very closed ecosystem. Unless and until you have spent certain time in this industry or you've built those relationships, it's not easy to navigate this ecosystem. So you need both network knowledge, etc., to navigate this more seamlessly. You could always do it, but hustle only takes you to a certain point. So that's the interesting confluence where you essentially are building something a lot with passion, but because this is a difficult system to navigate, unless and until you have the right partners, you have the right employees who've done this before, who have, or they bring certain gravitas to what you're trying to build here. It's not just easy to go and crack into a B2B or a B2C relationship. So that's a little peculiar about healthcare, and that's where I think both the founders here have done a tremendous job with HealthAssure and Hexahealth in terms of what they're building out. But it's increasingly challenging because you essentially and the India's payer ecosystem is still evolving. Unlike some of the other developed worlds, you don't have our 62% is still out of pocket, and we'll get some more validation from Varun on that number. But which essentially means, and you know where our per capita is, we are still evolving, and
that's a major difference. So I mean, it's more challenging to build in India in that way, right?
That's
the
right.
problem is also more wave here, but it's more challenges, around building around this ecosystem, which is still evolving. But evolving ecosystem always good though. I mean, it's always
gives great opportunities.
Exactly.
But it's business building is hard, right?
Absolutely. No, I think I read somewhere that 40% of patients, I think, are still unsatisfied with the healthcare in India, right? So that itself is a big opportunity, right? But again, it is challenging as well. If 40% of them are still not satisfied. So there is a segment here, just for a little bit fun. We have called it Kill, Marry, Date. There are 3 made-up ideas, and it may be actual ideas. I don't know, at least. But all 3 of you will have to put your investor hat on and just say that, okay, which one will you kill as an idea? मतलब not interested as an investor to invest in that idea. Which one will you marry and which one will you date? अब marry date में ये है कि फर्क यही है कि marry में तो चलो invest कर लोगे, date में maybe you just kind of guide that,
flirt with it for
a while. That's a better way to put it. मतलब थोड़ा mentor कर दोगे founder को या कुछ, ठीक है? So what I want to do is, because all 3 of you are here, I'll ask, maybe I'll say out all the 3 ideas, and one by one I'll go on each and ask, okay, kill, marry, date.
Start with the
ठीक है?
You have the real investor.
I was still wondering.
ठीक है, so the first idea is an app that gives you a score of how healthy your neighborhood is. Okay, so if you can actually choose a neighborhood based on how healthy they are around you, so maybe that app does that. As I said, these can be made up things, so I don't know whether they exist or not. But the second is an app that tells you how much is your lifetime healthcare spend depending on what you eating that day and how much it fluctuates. मतलब आपके vitals and खाने के हिसाब से आपका future healthcare spend कितना बढ़ने वाला है या कम होने वाला है, ये second idea है, ठीक है? And the third is that from that movie Interstellar, hypersleep pods. So basically you can sleep for months or years without really significantly aging in any way. So that's the third idea. So 3 ideas हैं. So now you have to tell me kill, marry, date. Which
kill
one?
all of them also.
Sarah bekar hai.
I have friends like
But obviously that's the idea, right? So should I say it again or
no, it's
samajh
okay.
gaya?
So I think maybe
Which one will you invest in?
no, so I'll kill the first two.
The first two you'll kill. Okay.
And the sleeping pod where you're not aging, I like to date this one.
You like to date. Invest nahi karoge.
So once I date, then I'll decide whether we want to marry it.
Fair. ठीक है. But any reason why you will only date that one, like the sleep wala? Is it realistic though in the near future?
Very difficult to say. But if there's a technology like that which allows you to sleep and not age, maybe there are a lot of takers for it.
Prophetic, right?
Something about this idea, right? I think now there's a clear sign. Anyway, Varun, what about you? Out of the three?
So the first one, it's a known fact that your quality of healthcare or your healthcare is most dependent on your PIN code.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's the biggest criteria. So
I would like to know the healthiest PIN codes in India and try to see the real estate prices there.
So surprisingly, so I think it basically forms in the kind of people who stay there and the way they think and then the way they eat, and it becomes a similar kind of model. So in case that is the case, which is the case, and I don't know how much of that blows up into the future, as in how much can you predict? Maybe it's 15%, maybe it's 45%. I don't know. But that is the biggest predictor of healthcare. So in case the first one can be expanded upon, I would date it.
Okay.
The second and third I would kill.
You'll kill straight away? Okay. Not to invest any of these? Even if you have to. These are all wacky, made up ideas, right?
Look, I think so on the third one, which is the pod one, could be interesting, but I think it depends upon a lot of science. So if you're looking at some of the, like Elon Musk of the world, they would sleep in a pod. So I remember when Hummer came in as a consumer vehicle from earlier army vehicle. And my professor, and I was at Notre Dame at that time, and he was the one consulting with them to say, yaar, iska market consumer mein hai ki nahi hai? And I spoke to him and I said, and I think his name was Mike. And I said, so Mike, what do you think? When I was a young kid at that time, I said, do you think there's market? He's saying, well, the only people who bought it are people who are very rich and are big boys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. So I think not.
Okay.
So it depends upon economics and science to say, does it really prove something? And if it does, maybe yes. And how expensive it is.
What about you, Ankur?
Yeah, I'll take a completely different viewpoint.
Okay.
So I'll kill the first one.
Okay.
I'll marry the second one, and I'll date the third one.
You'll date the third one. Nice. So marry the second one. Interesting.
So first one kill का reason बस वही है कि while the fact might be true, I think to educate the consumer about it will be extremely tough.
Correct.
Because I think the financial constraint will overrule that every single time.
How do you make it happen?
बहुत मुश्किल है.
But if you can make it happen.
If you can make it happen, obviously. Second, primarily because there is a general push of people towards eating the right things, as you can see on multiple apps, वो calorie counter वगैरह चलता रहता है. If you can actually determine कि तुम्हारा accurately what is the cost of your healthcare if you eat this food, I think it gives you an additional push in that direction of eating healthy. So that can work, and it might have a long-term acquisition or anything by a insurance company which can say कि यार मतलब मेरा spend कम हो जाएगा if you actually do this. Right. The third one is primarily date because, as both of them said, I don't know the science behind it. If it can actually happen, if
why
there are
not?
a lot of takers, I would love to, but I don't know कुछ होगा कि नहीं इसमें.
मतलब intriguing है. I mean, I saw the movie and I was very curious.
I want to know more about it, but
होगा कैसे ही नहीं पता.
एक तो होगा कैसे और कोई उसमें सोना क्यों चाहेगा वो भी मुझे नहीं पता.
I think सोना क्यों चाहेगा is easier part. I feel कि there may be a lot of takers now.
But आपकी कोई life नहीं है ना, आप सो रहे हो 6 महीने, तो आप उसके बाद उठ के जाते हो तो everyone around you has aged, but you are still the same. साले दोस्त भी गए. क्या?
And you're sleeping alone.
You're sleeping alone.
You're sleeping alone. Not so interesting.
Exactly.
Ankur, that we should talk about what Hexa is also building, because I think we are also trying to solve it at the patient level, and there has always been a discontentment around surgeries itself is something that person goes through emotionally also a lot, right? and somewhere I don't know how you satisfy that customer. So I would like to know how you're trying to do that, because it is one of the very, I think, big challenges that you picked up on yourself to solve. I feel.
Yeah. So the good part is that the solution actually came from a few doctors. So we were talking to a hospital and we were like, yaar, patient को कुछ तो था, and they were like, patient को pain था या जो भी था, and we were like, yeah, patient will complain कि उसको दर्द हो रहा है. So doctor was like, patient कभी complain नहीं करता, patient के साथ जो आया है वो करता है. आप उसके experience का ध्यान रखो, surgery ठीक होगी.
Correct.
So it's, to be honest, most of the times it's not about the surgery quality. It's about what happened before and what happened after. So what we figured out कि यार India में ऐसा नहीं है कि there are not good surgeons, there are not good hospitals.
Yeah.
It's about matching the patient to the right set and then taking care of all the pre and post. Because surgery तो वो doctor अच्छी ही करेगा if you have sent him to a right place. So that's the model which we started working on. So the idea was very simple कि health में why are people dissatisfied, particularly in IPD. That is because one, या तो वो उस जगह पहुंच गए जहाँ उन्हें पहुंचना नहीं, and that can be because of two reasons. One, आपके पास इंश्योरेंस तो बहुत बड़ा था, पर आप चले गए एक छोटे डॉक्टर के पास एक छोटे हॉस्पिटल में जहाँ पे कुछ होना नहीं था, वहाँ पे कुछ हो गया. राइट. दूसरा, आपके पास कहीं गए आप, वहाँ पे कोपे बहुत ज्यादा आ गया, वो आपको करना नहीं था. 3, किसी ऐसी जगह चले गए जहाँ पे सब पार्ट ट्रीटमेंट हो रहा है या सर्जरी के बाद आपका कोई केयर नहीं कर रहा है. सो वी took that as a pain point and started solving. So now if for example a patient comes to us and says ki yaar, I have a 50 lakh rupee insurance, we'll tell them ki sir, and our counselors will continue asking them questions, and now we have built an AI model on that as well. But they keep asking them questions, and basis their answers they'll say, okay, you can be mapped to say this is the doctor at Fortis, this is the doctor at Medanta, and this is the doctor at Narayana. And then we'll set up a teleconsultation. We'll make sure that all the pre happens before the person reaches the hospital. Educate them very well. He said this is laparoscopic, this is normal, this is what happens.
So they're more aware now, making
exactly.
Getting into the hospital, they're more aware as well.
Exactly. And by the way, this is something which we learned from 1mg. So at 1mg, there was a continuous hue and cry कि यार patient को ना time पे दवाई नहीं मिलती. ठीक है, टाइम पे दवाई नहीं मिलती है तो और फास्ट करते हैं. एंड देन एट दैट पॉइंट वी रियलाइज कि यार हम प्रॉब्लम ही गलत सॉल्व कर रहे हैं. वी आस्क्ड पेशेंट्स, वी डिड अ सर्वे कि यार मतलब टाइम पे दवाई नहीं मिल रही है, हुआ क्या? बोला आपने जो बोला था उस टाइम पे नहीं आई. इट वाज नेवर अबाउट जल्दी, इट वाज अबाउट आपने जो बोला था. आप पहले मेरी एक्सपेक्टेशन क्लियर करो कि एग्जैक्टली कितने बजे आएगी या कब आएगी. अगर आप उस टाइम पे डिलीवर करते हो, आई एम गुड, बट उस टाइम पे आनी चाहिए. करेक्ट. राइट. सो दैट्स व्हाट वी रियलाइज्ड इन सर्जरीज एज वेल, दैट यू हैव टू टेल द पेशेंट कि एग्जैक्टली ये होगा आपके साथ. आपका कोपे आएगा तो 5000 रुपए आएगा, इतना आप लेके जाओ, आपका हो जाने वाला है. सर्जरी के बाद आपके साथ ये होगा, जर्नी ऐसी चलेगी.
तो फिर सर्जरी जैसी भी होगी, एटलीस्ट they know that they got the right information, so they are more satisfied. I think a lot of the mistrusts happen because they don't get the right information. Right?
Exactly.
Varun, it is again a complicated problem to solve. I'm not saying, I mean, it does need a lot of variables, right? And you are solving for a bigger number also, right? Especially the OPD insurance product, right? Talk to us a little bit about that, how you solved those challenges, because that must have been challenging to even think of this kind of product and then now starting to sell this.
So so 13 years, I think the evolution I've seen that it's changed over a period of time. One, of course, is to get your network. Then it's about saying how do you grow, how is the operations, how is the technology. Then it's saying, hey, I have a network, but I need to create more products on this one. Then you get a product team out there to saying how do you build that that big pillar. Then it's about getting consumer tech. I think not the back end tech, but the consumer tech, saying how do consumers consume it. And it's distribution. I think we kind of as entrepreneurs we think कि हम खुद ही कर लेंगे distribution, but I think after a while you realize कि you need specialists in distribution. I think because beyond a particular phase of growth. So to build all these product, technology, distribution, health, I think it takes a lot, and I think at every different point it doesn't scale up to the next level. So you have to kind of change the machinery, change the technology. Like now we service like 8 lakh customers a month. And to be able to just imagine if some customer wants like an ECG, X-ray, mammography in Bhopal next to their house at half the price, where all these facilities are at a good quality and all at the same time. how does the technology work, and how does the manual part go out entirely? And how do we know that even after we know that it's worked, that the customer went there and still got a good experience, or maybe did not get a good experience? So if you look at these scale-up models, like if you see Ubers of the world, imagine if they have to start becoming manual, it'll be impossible. So now we are at that point right now, where we know that we have to automate everything. We can't let that 10%, I think maybe 3 years back we could have the 10%, kind of manual case, this guy knows what to do, and maybe he's a good guy, so he kar lega kaam. Now we can't afford, because now we've all kind of can't be involved in day-to-day like this one. Yeah. And every pillar of this has a next level of evolution, because it's an ecosystem play. I keep saying that this is, so agar aap dekhte ho jaise, in the top 10 companies in the US, 2 are retail companies, Walmart and Amazon, and 2 are health insurance companies. So size of the industry and size of the problem which you have to keep solving is so complex. So I think, and India, I think, is gonna be a torchbearer for healthcare in the world. Totally. So best doctors in India who are Indians, maximum nurses, probably the best nurses, Indians, best technology, India. If you're looking at the size of the market and what problem you're trying to solve, the entrepreneurship, the vaccinations, best is India, pharma, best is India, so you name it. I think
pitch to the LPs, right? that's a
no,
good
seriously, I think if we can just look a little like 5, 10, 15 years ahead, India will solve the problems of the world when it comes to healthcare. It's just that I think we kind of run down India a little bit more because we expect too much or whatever it is. But I feel that we are up for that big climb.
It's a great time to build in India in general, but healthcare even more, right?
And Varun is very, very right here. At every point, you have to think about how to automate it, especially in health, because health mein manual is not a simple system. Every problem is different. And touch wood, or thankfully, AI has come, which is trying to solve it to certain extent. So now at least you have systems who can answer the questions, basis the question, and not a repeated response.
But how do you build empathy in AI, right? That's the thing, right? I mean, there's so much care that needs to happen. So AI can solve some problems,
some
but
part of it.
So let me share an example. Like we have one of the companies in our portfolio. We have actually a couple of companies and more who are essentially leveraging AI. One of them is in mental health space. It's called Visa. It's the most published mental health chatbot company in the world now. And
really?
A lot of people tried doing the mental health chatbot thing without the clinical safeguards, and we've seen what it does. There were certain suicides, there were certain cases which regressed for worse, and over time a lot of those failed. But Visa, with its clinical safeguards, with the right protocols, etc., and the right escalation metrics, was able to continue building it out successfully. So that's just one example. So while there is generative AI and you could do a lot more with it, but in healthcare you need to do it because you're always dealing with more care, and you're dealing with human lives on the other side, which was Ankur's earlier point. You have to be always extra careful. Indeed, Visa has prevented almost 300 people from committing suicide. So we feel that it's a great impact story.
It is a great impact story,
and similarly, we have another company called Cure, which is among the top 5 global AI radiology companies. So they have now over 14 US FDA approvals. So when you have those clinical approvals, you know that you have the right product to essentially take to the market, and you are essentially trying to make that impact. So very, very relevant point in terms of while you leverage technology, but you have to your point earlier, it has to be with empathy, right? Clinical safeguards, how you're essentially building those scalable models.
In India, you can at least pilot it faster than US, because you can always have a safeguard in terms of doctors, etc. Because the availability is
quick here, right?
For example, even in our models that we are creating, it's always to a point, and after that it has to be referred to a doctor. Because we can't let that run for.
The access is there. Absolutely. Even Canada, I have family there. They're struggling with the kind of ratio, and healthcare is. I mean, even if it's free, it's broken because you can't get easily in front of a doctor. They'll try to avoid that as much as possible because of the cost that comes on top of that.
So indeed, the lead times everywhere in developed countries to get so that's what we say in mental health. The problems can't wait that long. The lead times are 4 to 6 weeks to get a counselor
It's
appointment.
Too late, right? At times,
Mental health problems, if at 2 a.m. you're feeling stressed, anxious, depressed, it can't wait that long. Similarly for surgeries, etc., in certain countries, you're almost needing to wait 8 months or 12 months for a planned surgery.
Okay.
And that's also gives an opportunity from a medical tourism perspective. But from efficiency of healthcare ecosystem, I think India is far ahead actually. We call it the 1, 2, 3 problem. So we are short by 1 million doctors, 2 million nurses, 3 million beds. Despite all of that, of course, our healthcare system still functions quite well. And if we were to essentially solve for that linearly, we would essentially need about $300 billion of investment. And that's where we feel that technology comes into play. We can essentially, there are certain estimates that we can save about $90 billion in cost if we essentially leverage tech judiciously. So I think that's why we're backing those models and what Ankur and Varun are here building out.
Correct.
We're essentially leveraging that to solve for these complex challenges in India and globally.
Anybody listening, trying to build in healthcare, I think can't get more motivation outside this, right? This is it, right? Like the numbers and everything and where the opportunities are. Talking about the ecosystem and the opportunities, there's a report that recently Bain and Healthquad also published, right? I liked one of the slides amongst other things in that was the ecosystem map that was created, right? Like in terms of the opportunities, I think you would anyway know this, so I want to share it with you guys also. And probably when we edit this, we'll use this slide if okay. But let's talk about this as an ecosystem. Where do you see, you are an investor, so it's easier to ask you. I'll ask both of you as well. But any preference for where that big opportunity personally for you is in this ecosystem here, at least in the consumer facing? Where do you see the next big unicorn or something really big building in this space?
No, so let me just give you a bit of a context. So genesis of the report was when we ourselves, because we were operating in that space, we wanted to map out the whole healthcare innovation space.
Correct.
There was no ready material available. So we dug deep. We essentially had Bain as our knowledge partner as well, and together because we had spent so much time in the space, we together curated this report. And the idea was to essentially map out different spaces, map out enterprise facing, consumer facing, how big is the health, how do you essentially slice and dice the market. And we realized that so we believe it's a $30 billion opportunity today, going on to become a $60 billion opportunity by FY28. And we broke it down across pharma services, biotech, medtech, and healthtech. And indeed, all of these spaces, without biases, essentially present a large opportunity.
Absolutely.
And to your earlier question of probably building unicorn business models, if that's one of the criteria. Each of them present an opportunity to build a scalable and sustainable business model, and we are seeing success across. So you're seeing both biotech and medtech are at a great inflection right now. Healthtech, we're already seeing a lot more traction. We have, of course, Hexa and
I see them
HealthAssure
OPD and IPD. I just want to share with you as well. So that to give you context what he's talking, but
right. And consumer facing, you are seeing rapid consumerization as far as healthcare is concerned. People are becoming more aware. People want to take control of their health more and more. And the only way to do it is providing the right quality of care and in the most affordable manner and in the most inaccessible regions. I think that's what we are all trying to solve here. We call it affordability, accessibility, and quality of care, and also awareness along with it. As people essentially have more information available to them, they want to essentially take charge of their own health. So I think that's what we were trying to solve here. And you've seen models across health and nutrition, you've seen models across diagnostics, you've seen models across chronic care management. So across the entire consumer facing space, we are seeing a revolution happening, and you're getting better and more brighter solutions coming at the doorstep of the consumer.
Yeah.
Think about it, just a simple example in diagnostics, how earlier blood tests used to happen, right? So you would essentially need to walk to a collection center, wait in queue, get yourself tested, probably wait for 2 to 3 days before you get your report. Today, the entire thing has changed, right? A phlebo comes to your home, you book the test online, phlebo comes to your home, you get the report in 4 hours from a NABL certified lab in most cases, and at 1/4 to 1/5 of the cost that you were paying earlier. So the whole diagnostics industry has turned on its head, and the quality and convenience essentially have taken over. And as for in healthcare, and maybe Ankur, you could emphasize more, the basic journey starts through diagnostics.
Absolutely. Great. No, I think super helpful to know anybody trying to build in this ecosystem where, but in case you have to build again, or maybe give a suggestion to someone to build in this ecosystem, where do you personally see, something can be built, faster as well? Not just faster is the wrong word actually in healthcare. but
that's a question we get asked all the time. Could you have done this earlier?
No, but in general, I'm saying, there's this segmentation of health tech, med tech, biotech, as well as pharma services. Anywhere that you feel personally, Ankur, founders should, think about building, it's the right time to build?
Yeah, see, I'm biased because I have been in pharma diagnostics and surgery space. But see, my favorite amongst all of this, if not surgery, would be diagnostics.
Okay.
Primarily because one, I have worked in.
You've worked in diagnostic, right?
That,
easier to answer that one,
but it's also ripe for a AI-led disruption. Because today, if you look at your reports, which come from multiple labs, can you actually corroborate those reports? Can you tell anyone कि मेरा पिछला टेस्ट यहाँ पे 2 महीने पहले हुआ था, अब ये हुआ है, मेरी रिपोर्ट का ट्रेंड क्या है? By the way, even if you look at those two reports, they will not work because एक में units कुछ और होंगे, दूसरे में कुछ और होंगे. तो for you to make sense of it becomes very, very tough. So it's ripe for tech disruption. As more and more labs come online, as more and more reports come online, the use of AI for that is very, very pertinent, because ultimately if a system can actually run through those reports and tell you how your health is behaving, that's gold dust. Because then you'll be able to track your health, and maybe it'll be bad for surgery business, but at least you'll be able to avoid surgeries.
I mean, that's the goal, right? In any way, the preventive area of things, you want to cure that, right? So got your answer. Varun, what about you?
Look, I think, as Ankur said, I'm also very biased on this one, because I've seen this evolve over a period of time also. So I think I've seen the flavor of the month or the year, or maybe 2 or 3 years, where something suddenly becomes like, hey, this is the most important thing. And then you realize that either the growth grows and goes and kind of stops us somewhere, or the business model never worked in the first place. So the way I look at the industry, for the matter any industry right now, is that there are engines for a phase 1 and a phase 2 and a phase 3.
Correct.
And you can't mix them up. So earlier, maybe when there was no lack of money, then the money defied gravity to say you go B2C. To say a tele doctor can go B2C and make money was so cool, right? But I think how can you go B2C on tele doctor? Similarly is the case for diabetes right now. How do you acquire customers beyond a point? So what are you making, and therefore what's your valuation? So what also gets spoiled is that if your valuation goes out of whack and you get too much money, then you're again stuck. So
that doesn't mean that people should not work on diabetes.
Exactly. But I think you have to keep growing beyond. So for me to get an answer and saying yahi pick kar lo, yahi answer hai, is not the answer. I think it's about saying start. There's plenty and more opportunity everywhere. Start anywhere, but be ready for next levels, and it's not going to be a straight line.
And think through it. जैसे teledoc is one of my favorite examples, because even when it started, my first gut check or instinct was कि यार इसमें how will you actually make money if you're actually going B2C? Because inherently, if you charge say 400 rupees for a teleconsult, the patient will say यार मतलब मैं डॉक्टर के पास ही चला जाऊंगा, मैं क्यों ऑनलाइन तो इतना दिखता भी नहीं है whatever. And the minute you charge 200, डॉक्टर बोलता है यार मैं क्यों करूं, मेरे को तो कुछ मिलेगा नहीं. So वो parity between these two numbers which can benefit both wasn't coming out. And it's, by the way, not a factor of the model doesn't work. It's a factor of what is the quality of your teleconsult.
Correct.
So for example, if you can give clear physical OPD like quality using a teleconsult, amazing. That will be great and people will pay for it. But if you are just doing a video call and you are charging 400 or 500 bucks for it, frankly the model, two ways it doesn't work. It breaks at some point.
So I think you have to build supply. To be honest, it's not easy also to build that supply, right? Like, it has to be only done gradually. Like, suppose you build that kind of product as you said, right? Like the quality, if you really get that as good as physical OPD, but for that to happen, then there's a lot more that needs to happen, right?
Exactly. मतलब इसमें वो haircut solutions नहीं चलते कि कुछ ये barely working model है, I want to make it, नहीं, वो नहीं काम करेगा somehow.
Actually, some of it also, like COVID, due to COVID, we saw acceleration of all these digital health models, right? And not just digital health, it was across sectors, right? You saw consumer tech, everything essentially moving online. And when it went away, people had to resort to go back to omni-channel mode. And but still, the adoption got accelerated by at least 4 to 5 years. Otherwise, I think in its linear fashion, it would have taken another 7-10 years. A lot of performance marketing money before people would have started adopting these models in the right way. So that happened. But when it went omni-channel, sometimes entrepreneurs and across even investors find it difficult to adopt the new approach because maybe it's they are tech-first funds. They continue to sort of stress more on technology to essentially build those scalable models, and do not realize the demographics of India and the evolving consumer needs to essentially then also dovetail their models or at times shift their models to keep those unit economics working well.
Ajay, it also comes back to your earlier statement, which is that the healthcare market is so complex that typically, I think so at United Healthcare, we kind of accepted that adage, which was never spoken, but we all knew it, which is that you have to be a healthcare person in some ways to change healthcare. It's a cliche statement. But I think, so one is that in case you have experience in healthcare and if you have a conviction, it's great. That's a positive already. But if you don't have experience, and if you think it's a great idea, then it's important for you to get some co-founders or some team which will bring you that experience. Because imagine a time where the tech folks without experience in healthcare said, hey, you know what, there's a big opportunity out here and let's get into teledoctor. And for that matter, if you take the example of US, it's not about India alone. So I think like 5 years back, Jeff Bezos, JP Morgan and Warren Buffett came and said, hey, healthcare is broken, let's try and change it. They couldn't solve it despite all the money and all the influence, and they had to shut down that company. So I think, and
because they were not healthcare people at the end.
And if you ask me, we already knew. I think if I spoke to any healthcare person in the US
they would have
and asked them, they would have said this company will go nowhere. But they did not know. We knew the future of the company before they started. So those are some of those essentials.
So if you're not a founder and in healthcare, get a founder in healthcare if you want to build something. Even if you're passionate about, that's what matters, right? You still need someone who has actual experience in healthcare, right, to build something.
Get the intricacies of it. So that's what I was discussing, I think, yesterday. But in healthcare, the problem is that when you go through that experience, you figure out the problem. It's quite evident. It's in your face. Right? And then you feel कि यार अब ये problem है, I should be able to solve it. But somehow, if you are not from healthcare, you miss that intricacy of how complicated that small problem was.
Correct.
And that starts breaking when you start solving that problem. So either take a little bit of experience, understand it deeper, or get a founder who has worked in there before. So वो है, बिना उसके it becomes a little tough to
risk becomes more.
It's more risky.
even for us, like when we're investing in these innovative models, what we're realizing is for a lot of our business models that whether we've backed or people in the industry have backed, there are no playbooks. It's probably being designed for the first time globally. And you're hoping that all of it is a success, but it's super challenging because you're essentially, so no consultant can help you at times. Even if you were to talk to people in the healthcare ecosystem, they can at best guide you, but there's never been a playbook, so they don't know how every element of that solution will interact with it. And that's why you don't know what the outcome will be. So that's a huge excitement also when you're building that solution, but at the same time huge challenge as well. And when few things that we attempt with the founder together and it does click, we feel personally rewarded, honestly, that okay, we tried something and it worked, and it probably worked for the first time globally. And then you're trying to see whether then, because of course India from that perspective is always tough to essentially build the right unit economics. That's where founders at time also look at more deeper pockets market, whether you go to Southeast Asia, Middle East as well. And sometimes you're compelled to, because while India is great from a number perspective, volume perspective, but from a value perspective, you essentially are always trying to fight the eternal battle with the India's per capita, right? So, and as consumers, we are the most demanding consumer in the world.
And we are demanding as well, right?
So,
on top of that,
so we want the highest quality of care at the lowest possible price at all times.
Absolutely.
And healthcare is unique that way. We have another company in our portfolio, which is India's largest medical crowdfunding platform and the largest healthcare integrated financing solution company called Impact Guru, now CarePal. So people, and I've seen those stories when you walk into hospitals like Apollo, etc. People almost exhaust all their savings, they sell land, etc. to get their loved ones treated at the best hospital possible in the country. They could also go to a probably not so best hospitals, but why do you always go to the best? Because when it comes to your loved one, when it comes to about any critical surgeries, you want the best for your patient.
You don't care about
it's unlike any other space. Okay, I do not like a particular apparel, I don't like expensive food. You can always substitute. Healthcare, there is technically at times quality of care cannot be substituted, and that's where you need more innovative solutions. And that's where our idea there was that once you walk into a hospital, besides your own savings, we have all the solutions available to you. Whether it's crowdfunding, insurance, or lending, all under a single roof, helping, trying to solve for to help you get the quality of care at and in a way create affordability.
And exactly, to add to your point, another problem is that quality of care is not defined. So when you say best, best changes.
Best changes, right?
So for example, for a person with 50,000 rupees, maybe Apollo will not be the best. Because मतलब वो नहीं है, वो अपनी ज़मीन बेच के एक छोटी सर्जरी क्यों कराएगा?
Correct.
Versus for a person with a 1 crore rupee insurance, maybe that chota hospital is not the best. The doctor might be great, but he doesn't want that experience.
Correct.
So to match that best is actually a very, very tough question.
No, very valid.
I think so. I've had some meetings which are so amusing with some of the VCs where I think so in healthcare is about aggregation, and especially the consumer side. We're trying to make consumer, because every individual goes to a GP, maybe needs a physiotherapist, has a pharma need, has a diagnostic need, and all of them are separate industries. So we're trying to get all of this together. It becomes very complex, and that's what we built. We built separate verticals.
Correct.
Now, if you go to a VC and say I have to do, separate verticals, and they say, okay, thank you very much.
You're trying to do too many things, right?
They're trying to do too many things, or let me try and look at every vertical separately. I said, no, it doesn't work like that. So, so I think be ready for you to be very lonely in your healthcare journey, because for the longest time, you will wonder whether it's you or it's the world. And sometimes in parties, forget about VC, sometimes in parties, you're standing next to your wife and you are someone saying, hey, what do you do? And you try and explain, and imagine VC ko samajh nahi aayega, so definitely inko to bilkul samajh nahi aayega. And your wife is looking at you and saying, you know what, you still don't know.
I keep hearing different things, right?
Credit to Chetan and his team.
Oh, thank you.
For helping us I think we reached them a little too late. I think we reached them after 5-6 years of existence, where he said, "No, yaar, ye simple karna padega." So, and then I think they really helped us come out with a good positioning and a good deck for us to go out to the market.
Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Thank you guys. One part of the deck was why they are the only one capable of doing it. So that really actually I liked personally in that story, that when that part came out, why they were only capable, but then it made sense why they had to do the other things, because until we talked about that aspect in the deck, it didn't really come out, right? I think that was the part that I personally liked. So glad you also liked that and it helped you.
Yeah, we did.
Lovely. One more thing we have to talk in this 3 ideas that we shared was we didn't reach a consensus, yes, that where will we invest. But suppose, just for the sake of exercise and being a little creative, let's maybe do the zip code one, that we want to invest in that, okay? Out of the 3, I'm saying. And let's create like a impromptu pitch to a VC, even though there is a VC here. But I want you, Ajay, to be also part of the impromptu pitch. Suppose we're pitching to the VC. The only twist here is that we all have to collaborate on this pitch, and we'll also have to use one word at a time. So basically I say, I, and then you say invented, and then he says this. So one word at a time. So we create a pitch, maybe, some sentence. Eventually the pitch has to end with invest in us. So we'll navigate towards that, while creating the pitch on the spot. थोड़ा challenging लग रहा है, but जब बोलना शुरू होंगे तो इतना नहीं होता, trust me. So the idea is that, there is an app which basically tells you how healthy your neighborhood is. There is some science behind his blah blah. We can make some sentence and eventually, give us the money, and we'll show you the returns. We know the idea now, and we are pitching to a VC. You'll have to put your founder's hat to pitch to a VC, and you guys anyway do it day in day out. कोई ज़्यादा मुश्किल नहीं है. So maybe I'll start, then Ajay, and then we go like this. Okay. So I'll start with R.
Problem
Statement
Is about
helping
people
find predictions
based on analytics
around
where they stay.
That's why
we have come up with
A solution.
that tells you
how to
find a
Location based
healthy neighborhood.
in India.
most people
are very diverse
That's why
We invented
this app
with multiple variables.
called
healthy pin codes.
which can predict
Your future health
invest in us.
And make
our country.
more healthy.
Wow, I think we're done. That's it. Ankur, you talked about, the statement, like one of the biggest companies in the world will be a healthcare company, right?
So
I think we should
that's
talk
a
about
statement.
that as we end our podcast,
No,
because
that's very true. So
Yeah.
Anderson Howitz said that the biggest company in the world will be a health tech company, primarily because if you look at the biggest spending pool of the world, it's healthcare. And if you look at something which has been able to give the right consumer experience, it's still not there. So if someone can actually create an Amazon of healthcare or a Visa of healthcare, one of these two will become the biggest company in the world. And the reason why it hasn't been done till now is because the segment is extremely difficult. So if someone is able to crack it, it will be the biggest company in the world. Super app for healthcare.
yeah. And Ajay, do you agree to that?
No,
We
absolutely.
still want, we can build that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So indeed, while we hope and definitely will contribute to hopefully building that out of India and taking it to the world.
Yeah.
But even today, Tim Cook, who's CEO of among the most valued companies in the world, they had mentioned that when you zoom into the future and you look back and you tend to ask the question in terms of what will be Apple's greatest contribution to mankind, the answer is it'll be about health.
Really?
So I think there is global focus on essentially improving health in so many different ways, and some of those solutions have come out of India, and I'm sure we'll take it to the world.
Yeah.
And as Ankur mentioned, it'll be fantastic to see some of those mega global stories emerging out of India, and if we can play a small part in it,
Yeah.
I think the journey will be very mutually rewarding.
Absolutely. I hope you play a much larger part, not just a small part. Especially if this company is built and it's one of your portfolio companies, and even you guys, what you're building, there's no reason, that can't be that company, right? Because you're also solving some massive problems, right? And there are challenges for sure. I think we talked about those, but there are reasons to believe that the companies that you're building will be one of the largest in the world.
There are no shortcuts to it.
Yeah.
But if we do it right, I think whether it's a global OPD network or a global surgery platform, it can become really, really huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Varun, any thoughts there? You've seen, a large company, one of the largest, in US and even in the world, right? United Health, and what you're building now, of course, you must be inspired by that as well, right?
Yeah, so I think I totally agree. Health is the most important subject, and I think as your economy and per capita income increases, of course, that becomes bigger. So health definitely has to be there, and health is incomplete without tech. So definitely, health tech has to be there. I'll give you an example of United Health Group, where their CEOs are M&A people. Surprisingly, all of them are M&A. Okay, and when I left them 11 years back, they were 100 billion. Now they are 450 billion in revenues.
Wow.
So, it's not going to be one health tech company which will grow. It will be how, as I earlier said, that the engines for growth have to keep changing, and how do you keep evolving, and how the various mergers keep happening within the health tech system, creating a super health tech company. Yeah, but I think answer is definitely there.
Amazing to get your thoughts today. Hope you enjoyed this session as well, and hope it was also very informational for anybody building in healthcare or looking to invest in healthcare as well. So thanks again for tuning in, and thanks all three of you for joining in. I think one of the most informational sessions, I would say, because of the kind of people we had today, all three of you, and the experience you have in building in healthcare and investing in healthcare. So thanks everyone.
Well, thanks Chetan for having us, and thanks Ankur and Varun for sharing those great insights into how to build businesses in India in healthcare, which is super challenging but super exciting at the same time.
I love it. Yeah, it was great. Especially having a VC and two founders.
And we being the backseat guys. I love that.
But building in the front
For
end.
once is
right? Okay, lovely guys. Thank you
so much.
All right. Thank you.
you.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.